Hi, my name is Sanae Mellouki. I am a university professor at the Faculty of Science in Rabat, Morocco, and have been involved in ESP design and teaching since 2004 at the Faculty of Letters in Rabat. My paper titled Theoretical Framework for Developing ESP Reading Materials at Tertiary Level of Education in Morocco stems from a deep concern about the teaching of English in Moroccan universities, which, despite the reform that has focused on the urgent need to instill a working knowledge of foreign languages, with English being the predominant language of instruction in higher education, to help Moroccan youth seek out better employment opportunities after graduation, has unfortunately not reflected the basic objectives and, worse, even failed to meet learners' needs. This fiasco in attaining the overall objective of the reform is mainly due to the wide gap between English language teaching and students' needs. The latter remain disconnected from their specific majors. Instead of adapting language teaching materials that relate to knowledge gained in other courses and learners' future jobs as well, the easy task was to hire mostly untrained part-time teachers with little or no guidance on how to embark on the teaching of English, and the result, of course, was unhealthy teaching practices, inconsistency, and, of course, waste of resources. This was a brief overview of the overall context of EFL learning in Moroccan universities, particularly the University of the Faculty of Letters and Humanities. And now, trying to narrow the scope a little bit, I will refer to my own experience as a part time English language teacher at the Faculty of Humanities. Um, uh, in charge of teaching English to undergrad students of Islamic studies. I have always been a big believer that attaining academic performance or better academic performance requires first a special understanding of learners' needs and objectives, second, a selection of the appropriate tasks and teaching materials, and last but not least, a practical assessment while monitoring learners' progress to provide effective learning teaching experience. I have noticed that learners belonging to the Islamic Studies department had very little interest in English language learning and were not willing to make the least effort to improve their English language. This was mainly because they were unable to see the value of what they were learning to their overall course of study. Thus, one of my main objectives back then was to design EFL material that will help prepare them for subsequent courses. Hence, after analyzing learner needs and setting objectives for the course, I decided to provide material that relate closely to students' needs and or specific skills and content. I was first debating whether to opt for a readily available textbook or tailor a textbook according to my students' needs. Yet, unfortunately, no textbooks have ever been designed for undergrad students of Islamic studies or undergrad students specialized in Islamic studies. This is why I finally took the decision to err on the side of a tailor-made textbook in which the selection of topics has been dictated specifically by students' needs. Accordingly, the choice of materials has been mainly based on the demands of employment market, since students of Islamic studies after graduation usually work as preachers abroad and also need English to communicate with fellow Muslims during the season of pilgrimage. But before I embarked on the design of the textbook, the conception of which was already pictured in my mind, I have developed six major criteria that guided every step of my textbook design. And the very first criterion was to match the type of syllabus with students' needs, which means identifying needs in terms of three major sub-criteria, namely relevance, motivation, and diversity. These three are interrelated since meaning, functions, and topics are all under the umbrella of Islamic studies. to involve students in the learning process and stimulate their motivation because they learn something of interest, relevance, something that they see in other courses. The second major criterion is having students become participants rather than recipients in the learning process. This means drawing upon their background knowledge and ideas and giving them opportunities to express themselves better. The third major criterion is relating grammar with meaning for the sake of better communication. This means focusing both on meaning and form and presenting. This means fusing both meaning and form and presenting language structures as vehicles for expressing meanings. For example, students who learn grammar, they learn it for the sake of communicating. For example, if they learn prepositions, they should be able to give directions. If they learn adverbs of frequency, they should be able to talk about their daily activities. It's for the sake of better communicating. And if they learn modals, they should talk about what is allowed and what is not. For example, within an Islamic framework. The fourth major criterion is to simplify text. Here I decided to see past or go beyond recommendations for authenticity. When it comes to reading passages, as a facilitator of learning, I adopted simplified materials with understandable language that is within students' level and abilities. But on the other hand, I decided to authenticate the tasks by planning diverse tasks that encourage genuine communication as well as interaction. Well, the sixth major criterion is, of course, since it is a reading course, um, since it is a reading course, um, I um, I decided to assist students in developing reading skills and strategies by making questions, making inferences, having them making questions, making inferences, analyzing information, distinguishing what's important from what is not. The final product then was a reading textbook with units, each comprising a theme under which topic related text are subsumed. For example, I had three major units with themes. For example, the first unit was titled "The Five Pillars of Islam." It was very basic, and there were six texts. One talks about the concept of unity in Islam. The second one talks about prayers. There are other texts which talk about ablution, the fast, alms, and pilgrimage. These are basic pillars, are the five basic pillars in Islam. And the second unit was titled Islamic Ethics and Manners, in which there were texts about Islamic manners of gatherings, Islamic manners of eating, drinking, and the etiquette of the mosque, the place where Muslims perform prayer, etc. And the last unit was about the Prophet of Islam, peace and blessings be upon him, and it talked about, and there were texts which talked about his appearance and dress, mode of living, his manners and daily routine, etc. So these are the major chapters or the major units I had in the textbook, with each comprising a theme with the topic related texts. These were included to help students exchange ideas and views referring to that theme. And there was for each text, there was a comprehension section. For each theme, there was a comprehension section to check their understanding of the reading part and encouraging them to express themselves. And because they should be involved in the learning process and they should build on their prior knowledge. And also there was a vocabulary section with the help of which learners revise the basic terms of the definite topic. The topic is not new; they already know this. What is new is vocabulary, is the language. So there was a vocabulary section which helps them revise the basic terms of that definite topic and enhance their word building knowledge and improve their linguistic repertoire. And finally, there was a language part in which they have to practice this newly acquired vocabulary. There was a language practice part which helps them check out how cohesive and coherent their written as well as their oral discourse is. And in this part, there was a language part in which they have to learn grammar, new grammar items, and practice them, of course, and practice them. And also there was an oral and written practice in which they had to give me back the new vocabulary they have learned and put them in their own sentences, and then write paragraphs using the words they have learned from the new unit. So there was both an oral and a written practice. To keep practicing the new linguistic repertoire they have acquired. The design of the current textbook has been far from an easy task, since it required operationalizing sound methodological tools to match the specific needs of a particular group. Here, I don't claim that this model is exhaustive, but it can serve as a benchmark for design issues, since it represents a set of language teaching principles which are meant to hopefully offer language professionals with a reliable instrument that will contribute first to their awareness raising when it comes to the content of textbooks, as well as their own role in adapting materials to meet the specific needs for their students. Well, that was all. Thank you all for your time and attention. Thank you.